This is an historic moment. Never has humanity's future been so closely entwined with environmental concerns. This is urgent. Our climate is changing. Natural resources are running out. Biodiversity is collapsing. Our house is on fire. We all know it. Everyone is talking about it. Now we must act. Practical, high-impact solutions already exist. Now more than ever, we need industrial players to accelerate their deployment. But other problems remain to be solved. We must do all we can to invent the solutions of tomorrow. We must go beyond transition. There is no time left for gradually changing our methods. To reconcile the environment and human development, we must make decisive, difficult and structuring choices. That is why Veolia aspires to a larger, higher, more challenging ambition: ecological transformation. Ecological transformation means genuinely adapting our patterns of production and consumption. It means placing ecology at the heart of every process, every assessment, every decision. It means developing radical, meaningful solutions to meet humanity's existential challenges. Decarbonizing industry to combat climate warming, promoting the circular economy to combat resource depletion, decontaminating the air, water and soil, protecting biodiversity, and creating a more resource-efficient agriculture. None of this would be possible without the coordinated action of all our stakeholders, our 180,000 employees, of course, but also our customers, our shareholders, our partners, and wider society as a whole. We are committed to delivering a multifaceted performance and convinced that economic, social, and environmental concerns must form an indivisible whole. Decontaminating, sanitizing, purifying, recycling, recovering, conserving, and facilitating access to resources, Veolia has always worked to create solutions capable of building a better, more sustainable future for all. Today, we want to become the benchmark company for ecological transformation. Our ambition is huge, but so is our determination. Ecological transformation, that is our purpose.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar dedicated to how circular economy and waste recycling and recovery solutions can contribute to tackle climate change. We are streaming from Paris in France, and my name is Alexandre Guyon. I'm in charge in Veolia of driving the business support for solid waste recycling and recovery activities. We have the pleasure today to have fantastic panels of leaders, customers and experts, starting with Veolia France CEO of waste recycling and recovery activities. Then we will move to Asia and Australia, and we will be ending by a panel from Latin America. I remind you that this webinar is fully recorded, and you will have the opportunity to watch it again in replay. And I inform the audience that you can post your questions on the webinar platform. So before starting, I would like to set the scene on when we are globally. You know that Paris Agreement set the objectives of a global temperature increase well below 2 degrees by the end of the century. But that's a fact. By 2030, if we do continue our business as usual, we will be far above a 2-degree trajectory. So it's clear we only have 10 years left to shift. Additionally, in the next 20 years, we will have 9 billion people on Earth, and the waste production will increase by more than 70%. So the pressure on resources will be extremely strong and driving increased emissions of fossil carbon if we continue our production model based on linear economy. On the positive side, we have to consider very good political trends with ambitious policies and regulations. And for instance, in Europe with the program Fit for 55, aiming to reduce by 55% the emissions by 2030. The United States also are back in the Paris Agreement, and China announced last year an ambitious target to be neutral carbon by 2060. So, with the clock running now, waste, recycling and recovery solutions will be key to tackle climate change, not only to protect public health and the environment, but to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. I will give you two figures. First, 5%, that's the global contribution of the greenhouse gas emissions from the waste sector, and 2 billion tons of CO2. That's the potential of avoided emissions from waste recycling and recovery solutions. So, to open our webinar, I'm pleased to introduce Anne Le Guenec, Veolia France CEO for waste recycling and recovery activities.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Anne. Hello, Anne. So my first question to you, in front of these great challenges, what is the role of Veolia in France you're seeing to drive environmental solutions and tackle climate change?
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Alex, for having me today. At Veolia Recycling and Recovery in France, we're tackling climate change with a full range of solutions. To go along with the figures you mentioned, we consider that 55% of the greenhouse gases are emitted through the energy production process, and we are considering that 45% are emitted through consumer goods production, transport, and waste management. Therefore, at Veolia Recycling and Recovery, we're tackling both topics. As far as goods are concerned, we are encouraging responsible consumption and waste reduction. It covers solutions including eco-design, source separation, new technologies, and artificial intelligence to optimize sorting of waste and improve our recycling rates. As far as energy is concerned, we are contributing to the energy mix and decarbonation. For example, we operate 40 waste-to-energy facilities in France that feed local district heating networks or industrial heaters, allowing them to divert from fossil fuels.
Thanks, Anne. So you were mentioning energy recovery from waste. When we look at energy specifically, what are the concrete examples you believe will help municipalities and industries to reduce their effects on climate change?
Yeah, let's dig a little bit in this waste-to-energy solution that I was mentioning. As an example, the big step towards the energy transition has been accomplished with the European metropolis of Lille. This is in the north of France. A heat highway, as we used to call it, has been constructed to transport the energy produced by the waste-to-energy plant we operate to heat buildings in Lille and Roubaix. This is a pipeline that is something like 20 kilometer length, and every year it treats 350,000 metric tons of non-recyclable trash generated by the 19 municipalities in the area. The heat produced by the plant is transported in the form of water, heated to 120 Celsius degrees, to the urban heating networks in Lille and Roubaix. This is enough to cover the annual heating of something like 40,000 homes. And thanks to this solution, the European metropolis of Lille stopped its last coal heating facility and thus saved 50,000 tons of CO2, and they will save this every year. There are other consequences of this solution. First of them, the air quality will be improved as there will be fewer fine particles in the atmosphere as the city is not burning coal anymore. Another one is the energy bill. With the anticipated depletion of fossil resources, the price of heating is really climbing. This will not be the case with the clean energies. So the heat produced from waste is the equivalent of purchasing 5 million euros worth of gas per year. Another example, if you allow me, Alex, of the solutions that we are providing is the partnership we have between Veolia and Solvay. This partnership has really led to an exemplary industrial project to produce energy from renewable sources, resonant for coal again, replacing coal with less greenhouse gases emitting sources to produce heat. The project is based in Dombasle. This is in the east of France, where the boilers will be fired using refuse-derived fuels that we call RDF. Those RDF are produced from non-hazardous waste, recovered from industrial and residual household waste, from which the recyclables have been taken away, and that is recovered and recycled as a source of fuel. This is a much better solution in regards to direct emission, but it's also a better solution when we consider the avoided emissions. This project will consume 350,000 tons per year of RDF, as many tons that will be diverted from landfills. In the meantime, Solvay, thanks to this solution, will significantly reduce their carbon bill so they can maintain their facility in France and preserve 1,000 jobs locally.
That are impressive projects, and especially putting circularity on energy. So on the other side, you were mentioning the impact of raw material production and supply. How can we use recycling solutions actually to lower our carbon footprint based on circular and local economy?
This is a very important topic, and the geopolitical aspect of it has been changed significantly a few years ago. China's import ban on 24 waste types had a significant impact across waste management on a global scale in 2018. Today, the shortage of raw materials and the large fluctuations on material prices make inevitable the use of recycled materials. We at Veolia therefore invest in solutions which enable us to recycle more material domestically to engage our clients into short loops of circular economy. Our collection and sorting facilities are fully dedicated to producing materials that will respond to the specific industrial needs of our clients. We also support eco-design, as I mentioned earlier, of products, so we make sure that we optimize the life cycle of the materials. Let me give you an example with plastic. This is a very actual topic. The plastic recycling market is evolving fast with the adaptation of more circular business model due to the impact of climate change and resource scarcity. Today in France, only 9% of plastic are fully recycled. Collection and sorting are a real challenge, but we at Veolia are developing technologies that significantly improve our recycling rates, such as robotics, artificial intelligence, and optical sorting. This allows us to really separate various resins of plastics and increase our ability to drive them to specific industrial processes. Let me give you an example. Recently, Thales and Veolia have joined forces to create the first eco-designed SIM card, you know, the one you put in your cell phones. And the SIM cards of Thales are now made 100% from recycled plastic. The use of recycled materials is in a specific industrial production process. This production process will eliminate the need for close to 5,000 metric tons of virgin plastic a year. This specific resin of plastic, the one we put in the SIM card, we are getting it from the fridge that we dismantle in our electronic waste activity. I think this is an exemplary loop of circular economy.
Wow, thank you very much, Anne, for your insights. I really like the example of the partnership with Thales. It shows how imaginative we can be in our recycling solutions. So thank you, Anne. And now I'm pleased to introduce Estelle Lu, Veolia Vice President of Plastic Recycling Activities in Asia. Hello, Estelle.
Hello, Alex.
Hello. So, well, in connection with what have just been said by Anne regarding the impact of the Chinese waste import ban, can you tell us about recycling solutions and how Veolia Asia has adapted its strategies?
Yes, thanks, Alex. Yes, we talk a lot about the disruption in the sustainable world. Well, China's solid waste import ban, effective from the 1st of January in 2018, was one of the most disruptive events in the history of waste management, I can say. So there was an immediate pain, of course. So China is still experiencing a lack of feedstock, while Western countries had millions of tons of plastic waste to be handled by themselves. But this has eventually driven countries to lay out a local loop of circularity, eventually, to concentrate on locally managed waste. And more countries today follow the trend and set their own goals on waste treatment and import policies. So for Veolia's strategy has been to tune right into this shift to the local loop. So for example, lowering the carbon footprint from our plants in Japan, treating municipal plastic containers and packaging waste. For example, also in Indonesia, our plant now only recycles local PET bottles. In 2020, Veolia Asia transformed around 138,000 tons of recycled plastics in our 15 plants in China, Japan, South Korea, and Indonesia. Knowing that 1 ton of plastic recycled can avoid 1.5 tons of CO2 emissions. So this means we helped avoid 207,000 tons of CO2 emissions in Asia last year, which is almost equal to replacing a 200 megawatt of solar energy stations. So there is a very tangible carbon benefit from plastic recycling, we should say. What's quite refreshing is also we are seeing targets not just from the government, but also from major brand owners setting clear targets for plastic recycling to lower their carbon footprint while reducing their petrol-based primary plastic usage. I can give you an example. Our global strategic partner, Danone, who's also the main off-taker of our rPET from an Indonesian plant, targets to use 50% of the recycled PET in their waste bottles by 2025. And Unilever also targets 50% of PCR contents in all its packagings. So also for the car OEMs start to engage themselves with more PCR usage in vehicles. Today, Veolia, as the circular economy resources, is more than ready to support our customers of all sectors to reach their sustainability goals by supplying locally sourced and high-quality recycled plastics all over the world.
Well, it's impressive, Estelle, the shift you made in the recent years. It shows that it's possible. And regarding the China announcement last year, its intention to be carbon neutral by 2060, what will be the role of plastic recycling solutions in the plan China is working on?
Yes. Okay. So China said it's a carbon summit goal in 2030 and carbon neutrality in 2060. So with a series of pragmatic roadmaps, such as to accelerate the transition from coal to clean power, as well as encouraging the recycling of plastics. For example, the measurements can be the newly issued 14th five-year plan to set up a special action for the entire chain of the plastic pollution control, including strengthening, sorting, and recycling of plastic waste, and also speeding up the constructions of municipal waste incineration facilities, so to reduce the landfill volume of plastic waste. So China also banned the single-use plastic in straws, cutleries, and stirrers, and the ban also set on bags and agricultural films since this year. Measurements can be the garbage classification regulation was put in place within 49 cities in China since 2019. This further improved the recyclable plastic waste collection rate, since more waste of plastics can be sorted out from upstreams and recycled in a proper way. So we believe all these above measurements will help China to achieve its 2060 carbon neutrality goal eventually. We also noticed that Chinese government, authorities, institutions, and universities pay now more attention to plastic recycling topics. And they discuss a lot of science-based methods to pledge plastic waste reductions, not only by reducing single-use plastics, but also developing wide applications of PCR. For example, the Chinese government has started to assess food security using food-grade PCR, which is not allowed today, but could be regulated and open up usage in the future in China. Bottle-to-bottle food application will for sure further enhance the circularity of plastic packaging, therefore further reduce the carbon emission. We are very happy to see the Chinese government deep understanding and also commitment to developing recyclable resources, which is a great encouragement to environment service companies like us and indeed to the planet.
Well, I would like to go deeper into this topic, Estelle. Would you mind sharing with us some examples of end applications of recycled plastic? And could you tell us, I mean, if it's okay to replace virgin polymers?
Okay, yes, we have a lot of thoughts on this because Veolia runs 32 plastic recycling plants all over the world and provides diversified solutions. FMCG's packagings with a PCR content are quite popular today, whether with the food or non-food contact packaging, like your shampoo bottles, detergent bottles with PET or HDPE. In fact, you can find PCR content today in almost every part in your life. For example, we provided like an injection molding grade rPET to a US brand for the makeup toolbox. In the automotive industry, PCRs are usually applied to the bumpers, the exterior parts, interior decorations, even safety belt. We will soon have a new plastic recycling plant in Japan, partnering with the Toyota Tsusho for its car application. For example, we also produce long fibers from our 100% recycled PET. You may find recycled fiber widely used in your clothes, curtains, bags, etc. We had also collaborations with electronic brands, supplying them with recycled ABS made from the waste plastics of our WEEE dismantling plants. But it is still challenging, of course, for recycled plastics to reach performance expectations for some applications, especially for the high-end ones. However, I think these challenges could be overcome by effective sorting, by a true operational excellence. And this is the sort of work that Veolia has delivered, which increased the PCR presence in the world. One major challenge could be in color flexibility. Not all colors can be produced yet by PCR today. So in some cases, brands need to balance between circularity and the visual effects of the products. So some brands today start already to effectively manage color expectations from their own end customers and consumers. Anyway, all in all, we receive requests almost every day from potential customers to develop new grades in new applications or new end markets with the recycled plastics. I'm sure in the near future, recycled plastics will be in all aspects of our life. And it just makes sense to recycle, reuse, and recover the great resources of our planet.
Thank you, Estelle. Thank you, Anne, for your insights. And thank you very much for taking part into this discussion today. With this, we conclude this first roundtable. But before starting with the second roundtable, I would like to kindly remind our audience that they can post their questions in the webinar platform. So now I'm pleased to introduce the next panel from Australia, and I leave the floor to Richard Kirkman, Veolia Executive Vice President and CEO for Australia and New Zealand.
Hello everyone, we're streaming from Sydney in Australia, where I've personally been for 12 months after coming out of the UK. And since I've been here, I've been lucky enough to be welcomed by an enormous opportunity in the waste management sector for this zone, coming out of, I think, really pretty progressive policies from governments, great ideas, and also action around infrastructure and decarbonisation as a whole. And I think this is all in front of the net zero opportunity, which I think Australia is at the verge of committing to. Dare I second guess it? It may not, and if it doesn't, I don't think that makes the big difference. What matters is we're going to take some actions. So it's fantastic to be in the position to drive a team. Veolia is about 5,000 people in Australia that is part of this important shift. With large-scale impacts of climate change increasing across the globe, COP26 has never been a better opportunity to use as a wake-up call for the modern world to show us how we can really change things. And for us, the road to reducing carbon and addressing shared environmental goals is a series of steps. And I believe those steps are about reducing carbon footprints for our customers with technologies and different offerings. To do that, we need consistency in policy to drive that environmental change and expand our innovation and technology, allowing us to upskill our people and create more jobs focused on delivering what we call the circular economy. So I'm really pleased today to bring together some of the people who share this ambition, and I'd like to give a huge welcome to one of our forward-thinking customers, Woolworths Supermarket, and Paul Donaghy, Research Recovery Manager, and Peter Bruce, Head of Waste to Resources. I'd also like to welcome Melinda Silentio, the CEO of CEDA, the Committee for Economic Development of Australia. Now, for those tuning in around the world, I'd like to set the scene of where we're at as a country. Australia, I think, is a country that's got a pretty good amount of space and big economic industries of mining and agriculture. And this means that we do have lots of holes in the ground where we can put landfill material, waste we don't need. And this is generally what happens today. It goes in a hole if it's not recycled. And we think there's huge opportunities to completely change that picture and avoid the methane emissions that come from it, which are 25 times worse than carbon dioxide. I think also our widespread geography presents challenges for access, transport emissions, and also brings the need for packaging of food so that it doesn't spoil as it transfers around the country. We also haven't traditionally had a very strong policy to support a circular economy. It's relatively new, and a lot of our recycling until recently was transported, exported overseas. And all these things have meant that we do now have a big opportunity, because there's a big gap, to improve both the infrastructure and the technology to enable more recycling. So we are acting, our policy is catching up, and businesses like Woolworths, I think, are probably setting the standard when it comes to these type of actions. I'll maybe kick off, if that's okay, directing a question to Peter around the challenges and what you think maybe are the opportunities you're seeing, and how is your business driving environmental change and decarbonisation?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So Woolworths has set itself some really ambitious goals. We want to be a leader in the sustainability space, and we've got a series of goals in our 2025 sustainability package. Probably some of the key ones in that space are that we'll be 100% green energy by 2025. Woolworths is Australia's 6th largest electricity user, and so for a company like ourselves to say that we're going to be 100% green energy by 2025, that's a big commitment, and we're actually got to work with industry to get that infrastructure in place. We're in closer to what we do. We've also got some commitments around food waste and general waste as well. At the moment, we still send a lot of food waste to landfill, which is really unfortunate. And we've got an ambition that we will eliminate food waste going to landfill by 2025. So we're working very hard at working with charity partners to get food going to human consumption for people in need, to get food to farmers, and then what's left over, we're trying to get that into organics providers. As you covered in your introduction, Australia's a big place, and when you're servicing stores the breadth of Australia, it is very expensive to get organics to central recycling facilities, and that's a real challenge, and that's what we're really hoping that Veolia can help us with, of how do we make things very simple for stores, so our store teams aren't having to do a lot of work, but facilitate getting the organics that we can't give to charity and to farmer. How do we get that into an organics processor in a simple, convenient manner?
Yeah, and I suppose getting the quality right so that it can go through those processes, just making it really simple in your supply chain so that you don't have to completely change your systems, is probably a way that we try and approach it and put new technology in place. What's been your real challenge then in putting these new systems in place? Has the business backed you all the way?
Woolworths is backing us all the way. So Woolworths is saying, how are you going to make this happen and make it happen? There is no question about, oh, that's an expensive option, or this isn't convenient. It's how are you going to deliver this? It's not a negotiable. We have to deliver, and so we have to facilitate, and we're very keen to work with our partners on that journey of facilitating the outcome. And ideally, we want a circular economy in terms of can we have our food waste converted into a new product that we can use in our supply chain. So are we using the compost in our supply chain, or are we selling soil through our supply chain? We're very keen on developing that circular economy and making it happen.
And Paul, I might try and bring you in there around the technologies for FOGO and also energy recovery from organic wastes or residual wastes. Are these important to you in terms of mitigating the effects of climate change and recycling and just a better treatment solution? What's your feeling around those options?
Yeah, definitely that's the case in all situations. So as we've all alluded to, the tyranny of distances between our stores and the capability to get that material to processing facilities is obviously a challenge. Obviously, the Australian government New South Wales is mandated FOGO by 23, and I think that process is going to continue around the country. So where we don't have access to compost facilities, We can potentially tag on the back of FOGO. I'm sure you're all aware as well the development in a lot of the water treatment plants now, where they're upgrading those facilities to capture the gas and obviously take some of that food waste through that process as well. So we're leaving pretty much no stone unturned to come up with solutions for us as well. But as Peter clearly stated, we're relying heavily on our partners, and in particular Veolia, to help support that to get to our zero food waste to landfill.
Yeah, I kind of think that these issues of recycling, food and organics, and residual waste treatment, they're not new to waste management companies. We've been tackling these all around the world for many years. And Melinda, you can maybe see here that we've got an environmental group that wants to deliver technology. We've got a customer that wants it delivered yesterday. And there's a gap in between of how do we get there. The policies, I think, catching up with what the customers want. And I think there's a question here of how do you get the right policy, because governments maybe shouldn't choose technologies, but they need to incentivize the right actions and the right deliverables. What do you think the path is for us to engage in the right way in that respect?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think you know my views on this, Richard. I mean, in a perfect world, you know, some really strong leadership around this and what we can achieve, and whether it's, you know, net zero targets, just sending a really clear message around what we need to achieve as a country. I think, you know, we've seen some really good positive steps forward, whether it's the National Waste Plan, whether you look at what some of the states like New South Wales are doing, and that's fantastic. I think the advantage of our federation here is that when you get one state leading, they do present an example that other states can quickly follow behind. So I think we are seeing progress, but I think there's a lot more that can be done and needs to be done. You know, standardization is one. I think actually educating customers and consumers is another. And I think we can learn from this experience that we've had through COVID, where when we really had to make progress quickly, what worked was business working with government and collaborating to push things ahead. So I think there's some really positive signs that we can see. And I'm actually optimistic, Richard. I mean, in some ways, you can look at the stats around our material footprint now. We have been a lucky country, a country of plenty, and maybe we've taken that a bit for granted, and now we've got to reshape our thinking. And we can do a lot better in recycling. But from there, I think momentum can really build quickly, and that's where we're seeing the appetite with leading businesses showing us how it can be done.
Can I just like to make a comment on there? I don't think we need the government to set us targets, because I think in Australia, the government, especially at a federal level, they're reluctant to set targets, has kind of made them not critical in the decision-making processes. Companies like Woolworths are out there making the running in that space. What we need the governments to do is help us facilitate the solutions. Where we're saying we want to have zero food waste going to landfill. We want to have zero waste going to landfill. We want to have green energy available. We're making the running on those commitments. We need the government to help us provide the infrastructure to facilitate those outcomes. And that's where we see the gap at the moment in terms of legislation. What can we actually send to waste energy? What is the impediments to us delivering those goals that we are committed to make happen?
I think it's a really interesting point, Peter, because, sorry, Melinda, I think it's an interesting point because, you know, government set targets, and what do those targets deliver? You know, it's really up to businesses to optimize the situation. But, you know, Woolworths is doing this, other companies may not be. How do you think we get government to bring everyone along in the same direction? Because that gives us the scale to deliver the low-cost solution. Customers
will force companies. So customers choose Woolworths because we are more sustainable than others. And so people are choosing to shop in Woolworths rather than other stores because they want to make sustainable decisions. And you will see shareholders, customers forcing businesses to make serious commitments around sustainability. And that's why I think it's not critical. It's nice if governments set ambitious goals, but it's not critical. It's really making sure governments provide help facilitate the provision of solutions and get businesses being able to make sure these outcomes happen.
Melinda, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point, and I guess I was maybe just tossing my two bobs in. Richard was talking about maybe we're going to get to net zero. So it's really, when you're trying to tackle these really broad, big systemic challenges, which are really hard, I think the government going out there and sort of being really clear about what the intent is, and sending that signal has a role to play, not really trying to talk about micro targets in particular sectors. And I think your point is really well made, that business is responding to the signals, and that's fantastic, but that there is a much stronger enabling role for government, and whether it's through providing the right infrastructure, as I said earlier, standards. I think there's a lot that can be done there. Procurement is another really important area where I think we've seen government be too risk averse in trialling new products. So I think there's plenty of scope for that. But sometimes I do think a bit of a light on the hill helps, and it can help de-risk some approaches that people are wanting to put on the table.
Yeah, I think the other one you touched on is consistency as well, because each state and jurisdiction has different legislation. So if we get some consistency, that'd be definitely a bonus. And the big one for me is still, and we talk about this across the waste industry for years and years and years. I say 3 words: education, education, education. Just continually have to drive the right education. And in our space, it's not only for our store teams, but also for our customer.
Well, I reckon it's always pretty easy to sit around and come up with all the solutions when you're in a room like this, but it's now our job to go out there and work together and kind of make it happen. I do believe that when people align, when business aligns, different sectors align, and organisations like Melinda's align and tell the government we all need this same thing, then government kind of has an easy job to do, because they know they're going to upset too many people. They can get their policy done and they can crack on. And we are pretty aligned around most of these issues. We need manufacturers to have the ability to make products that are more recyclable in that right environment where they can still be competitive, and to be able to set their own targets around that, and to be able to implement FOGO across the board so that it's not cost prohibitive and the technologies get developed. We could talk all day about this, I think. I'm going to wrap up. I'd like to thank you all very much for taking part in this discussion with us, and I really look forward to continue working with you all to drive what I think are really fundamental changes in the way we all do business.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for the insight from your customers. We can see that Australia is a country full of ideas, and we are happy to see that customers in Australia today are very convinced, committed to find solutions for food organics, green organics, recovery. And I will move now on the third round table, and I'm happy to introduce the next panel from Latin America with the participation of Gustavo Miguez, Veolia Executive Vice President and CEO for Latin America and Iberia.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our third and final webinar as part of our Tackling Climate Change Through Ecological Transformation Veolia webinar series. I am Caroline Bonato, Human Resources Director at Veolia Brazil, and it's a pleasure to be here to moderate the discussion on a very important subject, circular economy of waste towards zero emissions. I will be joined in this debate by Gustavo Miguez, Veolia Zone Latam Iberia CEO, Pedro Pradanos, CEO Veolia Brazil, and our special guests, Patrícia Iglesias, President of CETESB, São Paulo State Environmental Company, and Damien Lanquet, CEO of GreenTech Brazil, a French multinational company, pioneer of plant biotechnology, and a client of Veolia Brazil. And now to begin our program, I have a question for Gustavo. What are some of the challenges we have to reduce carbon emissions in Latin America, and how Veolia does contribute to the solution of this important issue in the region?
Thank you, Caroline. That's a very good question. Indeed, Latin America is particularly vulnerable to climate change because of its geography, a concentration of population, infrastructure, and the reliance on fragile natural resources for economical activities and livelihoods. On top of that, the damaging consequences of climate change are accelerating, and this issue demands immediate action and requires every area of the economy and the society to significantly reduce emissions and to prevent further damage to our natural environment. However, the reality is that Latin America is not in advance when it comes to environmental awareness and consistent environmental regulations and enforcement to encourage the rollout of a low carbon economy. Over the last decade, however, there has been progress on that front, and today there is greater environmental awareness clearly in the region. For example, cities and industries are increasingly concerned about their environmental footprint, and they are implementing action plans to reduce water and energy consumption, the production of waste, and greenhouse gas emissions. How can Veolia contribute? Veolia can contribute through a wide variety of circular economy solutions to help reduce polluting emissions. For example, transforming waste to produce electricity and steam to heat cities, making biofuel from waste oil, or producing electricity and compost through the anaerobic digestion or from our agricultural waste. At Veolia Latin America, we are committed to reduce carbon emissions across our business operations. We explore every opportunity to reduce our environmental footprint by investing in green technologies such as carbon capture, biogas valorization, and we continue to drive up waste treatment and recycling rates. We process almost 7.5 million tons of waste per year at our 27 landfills in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Mexico. Our solutions to reduce our carbon emissions are based on methane capture and destruction and power generation. Over the last 4 years, there has been significant progress made in our landfill operations to reduce carbon emissions. For example, in 2017, our biogas capture rate was around 23%, and by the end of 2022, we will capture 45% of our emissions, equivalent to a total capture of 2.5 million tons of CO2. Our ambition is to reach 70% CO2 capture before the end of the current 5 years term. And as part of our commitment to reduce carbon emissions, we are also in the process of transforming our waste landfills into environmental technology parks, with integration of services and more options for waste treatment and valorization, reduction of the environmental footprint, and the generation of value and opportunities for all our stakeholders in Latin America. In other words, at Veolia, we are tackling climate change through ecological transformation, and really we are very committed to this purpose.
Thank you, Gustavo, for the insightful context on the challenges and the opportunities to drive carbon emissions in Latin America, and how Veolia, through its commitments, actions, and solutions, is tackling climate change through ecological transformation. This is certainly a topic that impacts us globally, and we are proud to know that Veolia is making great strides in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Now, to learn a little more about the reality of the issues in Brazil, I give the word to Veolia Brazil CEO Pedro Pradanos.
Hello, Carol. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Carol, for the introduction. As part of Veolia, of course, also here in Veolia Brazil, we are committed to maximizing the energy recovery of the biogas produced on our sites with a circular economy approach and contributing to the mitigation of climate change. For example, in the last few weeks, we brought on stream 3 new biogas fire power plants, 2 in the state of São Paulo, and 1 in the state of Santa Catarina in the south of Brazil. And these units will generate close to 12.5 megawatts of renewable electricity from biogas produced in our sanitary landfills by the decomposition of organic waste. This is equivalent to meet the electricity and heating needs of a city of around 42,000 inhabitants. These projects contribute to the mitigation of climate change in 2 lines. By reducing the GHG emission through proper destruction of the methane generated by the waste, and the methane is a gas that contributes to global warming 28 times more than the CO2. And the second one is by replacing fossil fuels for power generation with renewable electricity produced on site. In summary, this year in Brazil, the biogas capture on our landfills will avoid more than 1.2 million tons of CO2 equivalents, traded as CRs. And we also currently studying other solutions for upgrading biogas in the country, in particular through the production of biomethane that can be used directly in the natural gas network or as an automotive fuel or as compressed natural gas and so on. As you know, we are currently suffering in Brazil a serious water and energy crisis, and this situation should boost the search for alternative and more sustainable models. And Veolia is here to support our industrial and municipal clients. So, as you can see, decarbonization is at the core of our strategy in Brazil. And it is important to mention that all of this is totally aligned with the ecological transformation, the purpose of Veolia that inspires us every day to look at the world in an optimistic way. As Veolia Resources, we really believe that our mission is to rethink and create solutions to make the model of life more sustainable.
Thank you, Pedro. Your comments really demonstrate that this is a very latent concern in the world. The future was already begun, and we have to look at energy metrics with more care attention, generation, creative, and efficient solutions. To comment a bit now on how Brazil, especially the state of São Paulo, can benefit from this project to valorize biogas. I invite Patrícia Iglesias, President of CETESB, to talk a bit about the subject.
Hello, Carol, and hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation. It's very good to participate in this webinar with Veolia. And although the waste management is not one of the most relevant sectors regarding the greenhouse emissions in Brazil, the participation of such sector in total emissions is important in the most populous states in our country. And this is really the case of São Paulo state. That's considered the most populated state in Brazil. And in such context, the recovery of biogas in landfills becomes a meaningful way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Nowadays, there are 6 undergoing projects on biogas energy recovery in landfills in the state of São Paulo. In total, 19 motor generators were installed in our state with a generating capacity of 27 megawatts. Each motor generator consumes like 600 normal cubic meter per hour biogas. There is room for expanding such generation, as the state has like 346 landfills for urban waste, according to our annual waste inventory from 2020. For reducing greenhouse gas emissions from landfills that do not recover energy from biogas, CETESB requires the entrepreneurs to capture and burn methane in flares when they request environmental license renewal. Additionally, CETESB board decision number 35 from 2021 requires landfills that receive more than 400 tons of urban solid waste per day to send their greenhouse gas inventory to CETESB annually. What I can say also is that when Paris Agreement was adopted, Brazil took up an important target to reduce national greenhouse emissions. like 36 to 38 GHG reduction below the national baseline in 25. So a great part of these targets refers to GHG reduction associated with land use change, and forestry. However, the challenge to reduce industrial and fleet GHG emissions will become increasingly important in Brazil. São Paulo has been preparing and implementing policies to deal with these challenges. What I can say is that in 2012, the state government introduced a subnational policy to industrial sector regarding 29 activities demanding the realization of such GHG inventory and informing them in the environmental agency. In the case CETESB, that's the environmental agency of our state. This was a pioneering action in the country where the federal government has not introduced measures to control GHG emissions, even at that time and now. The main objective was to reinforce the monitoring of GHG inventory in the largest industrial plants in our state, and it has been an uninterrupted policy.
Great thoughts, Patricia. Thank you. Certainly, the challenges are huge, but with the support of companies like Veolia, this path of decarbonization will be easier. Now, finally, I give the floor to Damien Lanque, CEO of GreenTech Brazil, who will comment in general on the company's decarbonization goals.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Veolia, for the invitation. Well, at GreenTech, we strongly believe that it's possible to disconnect industrial growth from environmental destruction. For 30 years, we have been creating high-tech active ingredients from natural sources from the plant, marine, and microbial worlds. Today, we are addressing large markets from cosmetics, nutrition, agronomy, environment, health, and well-being all over the world. As a biotech pioneer, the GreenTech Group is acting for the future of the planet in a spirit of shared progress and a strong idea of preserving the source. No nature, no future. In 2021, GreenTech Brazil entered a strategic partnership with Veolia Brazil for our new industrial plant in the country, considering their strong expertise in the ecological transformation and our responsibility as an industrial actor in the country. Veolia is working with us in 3 ways: better our energetic efficacy, valorize and treat our industrial waste and effluents, and support the development of our green industrial process. Together in Brazil, GreenTech and Veolia see further with the challenges of tomorrow, especially in the field of nutrition and environment. The next steps is to work together on the local industrial development of our microorganisms-based solutions for agronomy, agroecology, soil health, and effluent treatments especially. In GreenTech, we believe that the cross-fertilization approach of our expertise is part of the answer to the main challenges linked to the decarbonation necessity. We have to bring concrete, efficient, and natural solutions without destroying the natural resources. Together with Veolia, we are convinced that the convergence of our strategic approaches will allow us to reinforce the concrete answer to the huge challenge of an ecological transformation, especially here in Brazil.
Thank you for the contribution, Damien. Count on Veolia to support you in environmental challenge and goals. Together, we will make the ecological transformation happen. So, thank you everyone for a productive webinar. Let's keep on researching the world.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Thank you for your insight. It's very impressive to see how you want to convert landfills into ecological parks to make them renewable energy facilities. Thank you very much. With this, we conclude the last round panel. So I would like to thank all of you for taking part into these discussions. I'm sure that now you are convinced that there are real solutions and circular economy is part of the solution to tackle climate change. Now we will start the Q&A session where our audience has sent some questions to us. So I will start with the first question related to zero plastic approach. As we know, the leakage of plastic waste draws negative impact on the environment for hundreds of years. Some people propose to stop using plastics. How do you see this plastic-less approach? Well, thank you for this question. It's indeed an important issue. First, I would like to say why do we use plastic? Actually, you know that every year we produce more or less 400 million tons of plastic material. It's behind, in terms of production, behind cement and behind iron production. So it's part of our daily lives today. We use plastic because first, plastic is easy to design. It's easy to shape, and it provides quite a good protection to shelf life. And it's light, and it's easy to transport. And for example, in the automotive industry, we've been seeing that in the past decades, metal-based material has been replaced step by step by plastic to increase the efficiency of vehicles and to lower the impact of the carbon footprint. So it's not an issue to say if plastic is good or not. The issue today is more regarding plastic pollution to our environment, pollution into the ocean, and its end-of-life management. So we believe in reducing plastic waste first, in reusing and recycling plastic waste based on a few pillars. First, eco-design. Eco-design to reduce plastic waste. Design for sorting, design for recycling. We believe in individual behavior as well, to sort waste at the source. We strongly promote separative collections, especially deposit scheme, and we want to invest in smart technologies for sorting towards the production of new polymers with high performance. Let me give you just one figure. With mechanical recycling today, we are able to reduce the carbon footprint by 70% compared to virgin polymer production. So it's efficient to tackle climate change. As an example, we've been proud recently to commission in Norway a plastic bottle recycling plant in partnership with our client, the extended producer responsibility organism in Norway, with a quite ambitious target to reach a collection and recycling rate above 95%. So it's feasible. Our second question is related to bio-waste. What are the innovative and disruptive solutions in biowaste, recycling and recovery, and how do they contribute to tackle climate change? You heard before in the second roundtable solutions to recycle and recover bio-waste through composting, through methanization, producing renewable energy on one side, substituting fossil fuels energy, producing digestate that can be used as a bio-fertilizer to help the farmers regenerate the soils. So we need to go further. That's a good question. We need to be more innovative and disruptive in our solutions. Why is it so important? First, I would like to give you one figure. 70% of our farmland is used today for livestock farming. And aquaculture, for example, is being more and more intensive in fish meals, increasing overfishing. So it's a question to ensure the food chain security for the next generation and protect the environment at the same time. So we've been developing new solutions recently. I would like to talk a little bit of insect-based bioconversion solutions. It consists in converting bioproducts, waste from food industry and agriculture into proteins for animal feed. It has a lot of environmental benefits. For example, it allows the production of high concentrated proteins, but also it preserves the soils. For example, you only need 1 square meter compared to more than 2,000 square meter with traditional breeding. It saves water and it reduces your carbon footprint by more than 30 times compared to traditional techniques. So we've been developing farms recently in partnership with 2 startups, Mutatech in France and Entofood in Malaysia. We commissioned the first farm in Malaysia by the end of 2019, and we are currently commissioning our second farm in France. So these solutions really exist. They are truly circular economy-oriented solution for bio-waste, securing the food chain. And cherry on the cake, it does not produce any waste. It's a zero-waste solution. Okay, let's move on the next question. It will be our last question, and it is related to innovations in recycling. What are the disruptive solutions in recycling, such as chemical recycling? Well, that's an excellent question. You know that that mechanical recycling allows us to reduce the carbon emissions by 70% compared to traditional virgin polymer production. But we have to go further in terms of recycling. Today, for example, in Europe, we are recycling plastic at an overall rate of 30%. We have to go further, and mechanical recycling does not touch the polymer, does not touch the additives, and we need innovations. We need new technologies to tackle the diversity of plastic resins, to address complexity in their composition, polluted with glues, polluted with additives. These innovations are still at the research and pilot stage, from dissolution, depolymerization to pyrolysis. Still, we see a lot of complementarities in these technologies. There is a wide range of technologies. We can give some examples. For example, dissolution. We see dissolution as complementary to mechanical recycling for high quality feedstock of plastic. We see depolymerization, very suitable for PET, plastic bottles, for instance, textile waste. Another example, it can address colored plastic. It can be purified and repolymerized at a stage that you can recycle infinitely. Another technique, an old technique, pyrolysis, that has been managed for a long time and showed a lot of robustness for homogeneous feedstock. Pyrolysis is quite promising for complex plastics, specific end application plastics that contains multiple layers, different kind of resins. And actually, in Veolia, we do chemical recycling today. We do and operate pyrolysis facilities in Korea, for instance, to recycle in a closed loop artificial marble based on PMMA. So these are promising responses, technologies that exist, and we are fully convinced that a full plastic circular economy is feasible. Well, that was our last question. So with this concludes the Q&A session. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for taking part in this discussion today with us. You saw that we have technologies and more innovative solutions to be invented or to come. Today we saw several examples, real and concrete examples that are already implemented to help local territories and industries to mitigate the impact on climate change and moreover to transform linear production model which is not sustainable towards solution more circular on energy and resources. I hope this webinar has been useful, and we look forward to continuing putting into action these solutions to drive this important change. Thank you very much.